The Eurasian lynx waited where the timber broke, because this was where certainty ended and opportunity began. The forest did not stop abruptly, it thinned. Spruce gave way to mixed birch and pine, trunks spaced farther apart, light reaching the ground in pale, uneven patches. Fallen logs lay half buried in moss and needles. Snow lingered here longer than in open ground, compressed and grey beneath the trees, while beyond the break the hillside sloped downward into younger growth and open cuts left by logging years earlier. This boundary was not marked on maps, but animals knew it. Wind behaved differently here. In the dense forest it whispered and twisted. In the open cut it moved freely, flattening grass and carrying sound. At the timber break it hesitated, split, slowed, redirected. So did silence. The lynx crouched on a fallen spruce trunk, her body folded neatly, tail wrapped close. Her fur was thick, winter dense, pale grey mottled with darker spots that dissolved her outline against bark and shadow. The black tufts on her ears stood upright, sensitive to even the smallest disturbance. She had been still for a long time. Lynx hunting was not about pursuit. It was about patience tuned so finely it bordered on invisibility. She did not burn energy running prey down. She waited until movement came to her. Below her, the ground sloped gently toward a game trail. It was narrow, pressed into the snow by repeated passage. Roe deer mostly, sometimes hare, occasionally fox. The trail curved just enough that animals using it could not see what waited above until it was too late. The lynx watched. Her breathing was slow, almost imperceptible. Her muscles were engaged without tension, ready without strain. This was not rest. It was preparation extended over minutes, sometimes hours. The silence around her was deep, but not empty. Somewhere in the forest behind her, a jay called once, then went quiet. A squirrel scratched at bark, paused, then retreated. These sounds mattered not for what they were, but for what followed them. When the forest held its breath, the lynx noticed. She tilted her head slightly. Something had shifted. Not sound exactly. The absence of sound. A pressure change, subtle, like the pause before snowfall or the moment before ice cracks. The lynx did not move. She let the silence finish changing. The first deer appeared 15 minutes later. A young roebuck stepped onto the trail, nose low, ears rotating. He was cautious, but not alarmed. The forest had told him nothing was wrong. Birds were not screaming. Wind did not carry predator scent directly to him. He walked forward, hooves punching softly into the crusted snow. The lynx measured distance, angle, elevation. She did not track him with her head. Her eyes moved independently, calculating. Her tail tip twitched once, then stilled. The buck stopped near a sapling and pawed at the snow, exposing frozen grass beneath. He fed briefly, relaxed enough to make small, unnecessary movements. The lynx waited. Another deer joined him, a doe, lighter, more alert. She scanned often, ears forward, body angled toward escape routes. She did not trust the place entirely, but hunger had brought her anyway. The silence deepened again. The lynx felt it through her chest before she recognized it consciously. The forest behind her had gone too quiet. Not predator quiet, human quiet. She froze even more completely than before. Her ears pivoted backward. Faintly, so faint it barely deserved the name, came a sound that did not belong. A rhythmic compression of snow under weight, too regular to be animal. Boots, far away, but approaching. The lynx did not abandon the hunt immediately. She waited for confirmation. A jay burst into flight behind her, shrieking once. The deer below snapped their heads up. The lynx knew. She slipped backward off the log without sound and flowed upslope, keeping trees between herself and the direction of the noise. She did not run. Running advertised panic. She moved the way shadow moved when light shifted. Seconds later, the deer bounded away down the trail, white tails flashing, hooves drumming. The hunt dissolved without conflict. The lynx vanished into timber. The man entered the timber break 10 minutes later. His name was Mikko Saarinen. He wore a dark winter jacket and carried a rifle slung over his shoulder, not raised. His movements were careful, deliberate, not because he expected danger, but because he respected terrain. He was not hunting lynx. He was checking traps set farther upslope, legal traps for fox and marten, placed before the snow deepened. He had walked this forest since childhood. He knew the way silence changed when something watched. He paused near the fallen spruce trunk. He did not see the lynx, but he felt the wrongness. The deer tracks were fresh, sharply cut. The place smelled faintly of animal warmth. But something else lingered, a sense of interruption. Mikko scanned the trees. Nothing moved. He exhaled slowly and continued on. Behind him, deeper in the forest, the lynx stood on a rock outcrop and watched him pass. Her eyes followed the human shape until it dissolved into timber. Only then did she move again, circling wide, returning toward the break, reclaiming the place where silence had shifted. By late afternoon, snow began to fall. Not the heavy, soft snowfall that erased tracks quickly, but fine grains that hissed against bark and crusted old prints into sharper outlines. It made the forest louder in small ways, quieter in large ones. The lynx returned to the timber break from the opposite side. She tested the air first, lifting her nose, reading layers. Deer long gone, fox earlier, human passing but fading. No immediate threat. She climbed onto a different perch, a rock this time, lichen-covered and elevated just enough to give advantage. Snow dusted her whiskers. The light faded into blue-grey, flattening depth and softening edges. This was when lynx saw best, when contrast belonged to them. She waited. Time passed differently here. The forest did not measure it in minutes. The silence shifted again. This time it bent instead of breaking. A hare emerged from cover below, moving in short bursts, stopping often to listen. Snowshoe hare were abundant this year, their white coats nearly invisible against the ground. They relied on speed and confusion, not awareness. The lynx focused, her pupils widened, her body compressed. She let the hare move closer than instinct suggested, because closer meant certainty. The hare paused beneath the rock. The lynx dropped. The motion was sudden, vertical, final. Her forepaws struck first, claws hooking fur, her weight pinning the hare before it could kick free. Her jaws closed behind the skull. The sound was brief. The forest accepted it. She carried the hare back into cover, snow marking her passage with a thin red line that would freeze by morning. She fed quickly, then cached what remained beneath needles and snow, tamping it down carefully. As she worked, she listened. The silence did not resist her now. That night, Mikko stood at the edge of the cut with another man, discussing timber plans for the coming year. Machines would return soon, roads would widen, the forest would open further. "Deer numbers are good," the other man said. "Predators too." Mikko nodded, but said nothing. He had seen tracks near the break, round, large, with no claw marks. He had known immediately what they meant. He looked into the forest where snow fell steadily, hiding movement. Somewhere in there, the lynx moved between shadows, adapting, adjusting, surviving. The silence shifted again as machines would come, as trees would fall, as paths would change. But for now, the lynx owned the pause between sounds. She moved along the timber break at dawn, stepping where snow had not yet crusted, ears forward, body light. The forest had changed slightly. She changed with it, and silence, never fixed, never empty, shifted once more to make room for her. Morning arrived without announcement. There was no clean edge between night and day, only a slow lifting of darkness as snow clouds thinned and light seeped downward through the canopy. The forest took shape in layers, first trunks, then branches, then the ground, still and pale, marked with the faint record of everything that had moved while humans slept. The lynx moved before full light. She left the timber break behind, not because it had failed her, but because places like that demanded rotation. Waiting too long in one corridor turned advantage into habit, and habit was dangerous. Prey learned. Humans noticed patterns. Silence grew cautious. She travelled along the contour of the slope, stepping where snow lay shallow and wind-scoured. Her paws barely broke the crust. Her tail balanced each shift of weight, correcting motion before it completed. The forest spoke softly now, not with alarms, but with continuity. Small birds resuming movement, mice tunnelling under snow, branches shedding their load with a sigh. These were good sounds. They meant no one had claimed dominance over the morning. She crossed an old skid trail where logging machines had once passed, years ago. Saplings had grown back thin and close, creating a narrow passage. Snow lay deeper here, untouched. She paused, sniffed, then continued. Halfway across, she stopped. The silence did not break. It thinned. That was worse. She lowered her head and listened deeper, not to sound itself, but to how sound behaved. A distant woodpecker hammered once, then stopped too quickly. A vole tunnelled, then froze. Something ahead had altered the pattern. The lynx crouched and waited, body low, ears flattened slightly outward. A shape moved between trees. Not deer, too tall, not wolf, too smooth, human. Another man, different from Miko, broader shoulders, heavier boots. He moved without the care of someone who belonged here daily, stopping often, scanning, checking something in his hands, a phone or GPS unit. Forestry survey. The lynx recognized the category without understanding the purpose. Humans who moved like this did not hunt. They measured, they marked, they returned. That mattered. She shifted backward slowly, using the thickness of saplings as cover. Snow whispered faintly under her paws, but the sound dissolved among branches and wind. She circled downslope, widening her distance without exposing her direction. The man passed through the skid trail unaware, leaving deep prints that cut into snow and broke its surface language. The forest noted it. So did the lynx. By midday, the clouds lifted. Light sharpened. Shadows grew defined. The temperature rose just enough to soften the snow's top layer, making movement louder, more honest. The lynx rested in a dense stand of young pine where branches trapped falling snow and created dry pockets beneath. She lay curled, conserving heat, eyes half closed but never unfocused. Dreaming came in fragments. Not images, but sensations. Pressure before impact, the moment of weightlessness before a drop, the exact resistance of muscle beneath fur. Dreams of calculation, not memory. She woke instantly when the forest changed tone again. This time it was not human, it was heavier. A low vibration travelled through the ground, irregular and distant. Not footsteps, not machines yet. Ungulate. Red deer moving through lower ground, a small group. 2 hinds and a calf. They moved cautiously, snow crunching softly, stopping often to test air. The lynx rose into a sit, body aligned with shadow. She did not hunt immediately. Red deer were larger, stronger than roe. A calf was possible, but only if conditions aligned perfectly. Snow depth, escape routes, her own position, all needed to favour her. She watched them pass below, measuring. The silence around them bent but did not collapse. They moved on. She let them go. Energy saved was energy earned. Late afternoon brought another kind of sound, far away but unmistakable. The first distant growl of machinery. Not here yet, not today, but soon. The forest reacted subtly. Birds lifted earlier, small mammals tightened their roots. Even wind seemed to avoid the direction of the noise. The lynx stood on a ridge and looked downslope toward the timber break she had left that morning. From this angle she could see how thin the forest edge had become, how much light spilled where shadow once held, how paths widened under repeated use. This was not fear, it was assessment. Her territory was changing, not violently, not suddenly, but persistently. Each season pressed it a little tighter, nudged movement into narrower bands. She would adjust. She always had. She turned away from the break and followed a game trail that led deeper into older forest, where trees stood closer and silence behaved more predictably, where sound did not shift without cause. Behind her, the timber break waited, still useful, still dangerous, still watched by more eyes than before. That evening, Miko returned home with frost in his beard and a quiet heaviness in his chest. He cleaned his boots on the step and paused before going inside, looking back toward the dark line of forest against snow-bright sky. He thought of the tracks he had seen, of the place where sound felt interrupted, of how some animals did not announce themselves, but changed the world anyway. Inside, the radio spoke of timber schedules and quotas and mild winters ahead. Miko turned it down. Somewhere beyond his hearing, the lynx moved along a ridge, her steps placed with care, her ears tuned to what stayed unsaid. The forest did not belong to silence. Silence belonged to those who understood when it shifted and why. And that night, as snow began again, the forest adjusted itself once more, holding predator and people within the same quiet, uneasy balance.